there you go. And then you don't find the bug until
I
like
know.
hours and hours and hours later.
I know that's a dangerous thing, eh? It sounds very convincing.
Mm-hmm.
Very convincing. But then, humans have that trait too. It's just the difference is humans believe they're right.
Right.
GPT doesn't, so I don't think it's very much different.
I took a crack at like Solidity using ChatGPT because I wasn't going to learn it by myself. And I got to tell you, I hate Solidity. I think it might be the least fun language I've ever used.
Um, you're right. There is no less fun language. And what sort of amplifies the pain is that you can lose millions of dollars by
Right.
your bug, right? You're like, here's this crappy language that you can slice your own foot off with, and now here's all this expectation.
Right. ChatGPT always recommends bouncing down into like assembly language constructs on it too. Like it's like not a high level language at all.
Well, it's trying to optimize for gas because the
Right.
gas is charged per opcode, and
Right.
so Satoshi Island guys have been looking over a bunch of their smart contracts, and it was actually from reading over their smart contracts that I figured out a way to do the Dreamcatcher in Solidity
Mm-hmm.
using the ERC 1155 standard,
Let me look that up.
which is a semi-fungible token,
Right.
which was sort of what the topic I wanted to, one of the primary topics I wanted to hit today.
Sure.
I just wanted to take a second, though, to call out some of the statements that GPT has been making to me about various different topics that I find fascinating.
Right.
Here we go. So I sent it like that really super shitty blog post draft that I did
Mm-hmm.
on modeling innovation networks as circuits,
Mm-hmm.
and was like, finish this and rewrite it as a blog. Then it comes back and says, in this model, the network, like I'll skip the stuff at the front because it's good, but it's not remarkable.
Right.
In this model, the network itself becomes the innovator. It's not about any single entity driving change, but rather the collective effort of the network, with each node contributing to the overall innovation. We can visualize the innovation process as a series of information circuits, each with its unique challenges and opportunities. These circuits may have unreliable operation, delays, lost packets as in unrealized ideas, and varying costs. However, just as in a packet switch network, the ability to break down a large packet or idea into smaller pieces, transport them via alternate routes, and reassemble them at the destination can prove to be highly effective. This approach allows for parallel processing, resilience in the face of obstacles, and the integration of diverse perspectives. In conclusion, viewing innovation through the lens of the packet switching network opens up exciting possibilities for the way we conceptualize, manage, and execute innovation. By embracing the network as the innovator, we can build a more resilient, adaptive, and efficient innovation ecosystem. Which is a better way of saying it than I've ever heard anyone say. And it took it all of like 5 seconds and cost me $20. So, I don't know. That just seems remarkable.
Yeah.
So I guess the high level thing was that I think that based on that Dreamcatcher AI blog post, I think what we can say is that we have Ethereum provides enough of a blockchain to provide the banking and escrow services that we need.
Right.
The Dreamcatcher blockchain has the potential to supply us with the micropayments ability that we need for being able to do attribution, because attribution, you need to be able to do very tiny amounts of attribution to add up to something in the internet connected world.
Right.
And then finally, those two streams of information can be used to build the Dreamcatcher AI on top of, which is a way of saying here's a large model that we've trained on packetized innovation data that's used to infer what the relative worth of one person's labor versus another person's versus the American dollar is. And that's kind of, I think that's kind of the thing we want to commit to building, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good vision. I think what you want is like you want to build all the nodes in the graph so that you can extract the patterns from them with AI, right?
That's it. Yeah. By making it into packets, you get that information at a per task level. And that was really the thing that the guys at CERN were sort of hammering on about, was that they wanted the minute interactions between people to be able to discern or infer what was going to be successful.
Right.
And what I'm saying here is that I want to do something different with the data. I want to infer who earned what.
Right.
They want to infer who's going to win. That's fine. You can do that as well. I want to just infer who deserves what is all I want.
Right. What do you mean win? What did they mean by win?
They meant like, we got $100 million. Where should we put it?
The CERN guys, you're saying they wanted to infer who was going to win by analyzing the micro interactions between like nodes in the graph, basically.
Micro interactions between people within projects, and they wanted to be able to infer which projects were going to win and where they should put their money.
Right.
And to do that, they started by analyzing the CERN email server and message boards and trying to infer out of the connections between the email trails what, who was winning and who wasn't. And it was them that came up with this notion of a like a tile structure for a project.
Right.
That they could, if they could convert every project into this tile format, then they could start to compare all of the projects and use that as a base for the inference that they wanted.
Right.
And so what we've been pursuing for the past several years is, what is that tile structure practically? Yeah. Their tile structure was not practical.
Not flexible enough to admit like the way a lot of people actually work, right?
Well, I think that was an error to try and ingest how people work, because it's a mess. If you can figure it out, great. But let's assume that you could figure it out. Would you still want them to keep working that way? Is the bigger question. And I say no. I say if we start trying to work on packet switching as the innovation model, I think we want people to work like that, because I think even if it's done manually, it's better. And second of all, if you build your data set like that, the data set comes out better. And then if you then apply your inference to only packet switch models, it just seems like a cleaner, simpler, more complete path to go down.
Yeah, I could see why they'd want to like come up with the type. Like, you were probably talking to a bunch of like statistical mechanics people. The way they look at the world is like, can I come up with a cell in the system and then like look at all the cells beside each other, basically.
The words they kept using were automata.
Right.
They were a bunch of guys that dealt massively with state machines and different kinds of automata, and they were trying to make like a state machine description of a project that they could sort of wrangle every project into. And I think that was too lofty.
Yeah, there's too many like squishy. There's too many squishy states that things can get into, right?
Yeah, and I thought that the real fault was the fact that the projects are so poorly defined in the human world that I don't believe there is an answer to the question they were asking,
Right.
because humans are just
Right.
you know,
And so how you're sidestepping it is like you don't need like this automata. You don't need the state machine description. You just need somebody wants work and somebody has money, right?
well, the state machine description is this packet model,
Mhm.
and it's a simple state machine, and it sort of imposes itself upon the project as opposed to making itself available to the project. It's like you have to interact in this way to get these benefits.
Mm.
And one of those side effects of that benefit is that we can start building this attribution engine
Mhm.
that will give you an instantaneous answer as to what are you going to get paid, which I think is an extraordinarily useful model to produce.
Mhm.
And so what I was thinking, and I'll just leave out names for the sake of the recording, but
Mhm.
what I was thinking is that there's a certain somebody I know that has a public company that just went back into shell. Like they're just looking, now they're looking for a purpose.
Right.
And this particular shell happens to hold a bunch of patents that are of interest to us.
Right.
And I think that this goal of saying, I mean, AI is all the rage. We're actually able to say that we are genuinely trying to be an AI blockchain project, which is not something that I think people have managed to merge together in any sort of feasible sense. But that's actually what our goal is.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking, I mean, have a think about it, but maybe that's something you'd want to get involved in, because if we can get a company going around that, then it
Yeah.
seems
I mean,
like
there's no question that I want to get involved with it. I don't even need to think about it. I do need to, like, we obviously would need to like smash heads about terms a little bit, I think. And like, if there's any way I can help you in that, like going out there and trying to figure that out, I'd like to.
sure. Okay. Well, I was basically thinking it would be really just you, me, and Scott.
Mhm.
I think that's all we need. The rest can all be done using packets and using contractors and various things like that. I don't think we need to have a big bunch of people ever again.
Mhm. Or $1 million a month office. Not a month, a year, whatever.
Maybe one of the dumbest moves I ever saw pulled. I actually nearly quit over that. I was like, you guys are fucking idiots. Like, that's just the dumbest thing. So yeah, so I guess the question, some of the uncertainties for me are, if we get this packet format going,
Mhm.
do you think that a collapse of the public company would in any way render the Dreamcatcher unusable?
Basically, my answer to that is like not if fork is implemented.
Yeah, okay. I also think that given that if all the packets are GPL software,
Mhm.
then if the public company fails, it's just you just carry on. You just need a different source of funding. And I
Mhm.
guess the balance that I have to strike is the public company funding of more benefit to the project than the damage that would be done if it collapsed?
Yeah, so that's another. Is it gonna twist things, right?
Well, it can't if it's using the smart contract, because you're
Right.
like, here's the Dream Ether smart contract. This
So
is the system rules.
the smart contract you're talking about is the one you linked in the code topics channel.
Yeah.
The state for the packet NFT.
Yeah.
I had a further question about these. So like the yellow box is the way I'm reading this. That's like that's your interaction with the proper Dreamcatcher platform, basically. Like those are
this currently the state transitions are the
Yeah.
interactions with the proper Dreamcatcher platform, where you had to also sign an Ethereum transaction.
Yeah.
And then the yellow boxes there were where the smart contract mints NFTs.
Right.
So yellow means mint.
Yellow means mint NFTs on Ethereum, or yellow means mint. Okay.
Yellow means mint on a. Sorry.
Right. So the packets, I got this backwards. Basically, the packets are running on Dreamcatcher. The yellow boxes are the binding into the Ethereum ecosystem.
The packet, the way that I've been thinking about it is that the packet is represented on Ethereum as an NFT in the form of packet ID and then packet hash, where packet hash represents the current Pulse ID within the Dreamcatcher network of all the data that goes along with it, such as the text description, the image, things like that. So you'd come into our front end, use it like a workbench, generate your packet with its NFT image, and then when you're ready, you would submit it to the Ethereum blockchain with the hash of the current Pulse ID and the Ethereum fees that you need to pay.
Right.
When it lands in the smart contract and the data checks out, it then mints you a collection of, or makes available to you a collection of 6 different NFTs. Sorry, technically 7. One is the packet itself, which is never ever tradable and cannot be owned by anyone. The sub packets were ones that I sent in those links in the channel, where you've got like one NFT type for funders, one for patrons or people who want to buy the finished product but don't want to commit to having their funds forcibly paid out, and solvers, which is people that produce a solution, where a solution is basically just you submit a solution by saying packet ID and then Pulse ID hash of what contains your solution, and then the QAs will decide whether or not that packet solution actually solves the packet. And then the packet gets marked resolved, which mints and burns at the same time. So like if you had, say you had 1,000 units of funding tokens, and then the packet got resolved and your objection period timed out, so your 3-day objection period where you as a funder can be like, nah, that's not what I was funding. So once you either said that's cool, go ahead, or it timed out, your funding tokens get deleted and you get reminted a collection of funded tokens, where funded means like you are now a contributor in a resolved packet, as opposed to you are helping incentivize a packet, but it hasn't been done yet. So what does that mean?
Right.
And then,
sorry, keep going.
And then they all show up in your wallet as these different NFTs with different images and descriptions and things based on what the packet is. And there'll be like a little emblem in the bottom right corner that represents what type of what share of the packet it represents. Like, is it funding, patron, solution, or QA?
Yeah, it makes sense. I can't see any holes to poke in it. I mean, it seems like a very simple model that describes like
It's super simple.
everything, right? Like it describes the whole process of having ideas and trying to make them real.
Yeah, yeah. But so I guess I was using Ethereum as the escrow and the money,
Right.
and the share trading nature of it. So I guess the thing I gotta be comfortable with is if we do launch a company off it, then if that company fails, provided it did everything using this smart contract, I think that the damage it would do to the ecosystem would be less than the win it would give us from having the funding available and the presence.
Mhm.
Because what I'm thinking is that this system needs a lot of promotion.
Yeah.
And promotion goes well with a public company. Like they will happily spend a third to half of their budget on promotion.
Yeah.
And so, that all sort of ties in really well. Their stock goes up, the Dreamcatcher throughput goes up, the Dreamcatcher gets more funding. If it all goes to custard, all this, at least the software got built. So there's that.
What's the jurisdiction of the company?
The company would be Vancouver.
Okay. Do you see any sort of risk of like the government here changing their attitude towards like crypto as a finance strategy?
Absolutely, but I think that we can because the NFTs are not fungible, I think they will not fall in the currency category. And I also think that in the front end, we can do a Stripe integration to take credit card payments.
Yeah.
Where you're just like, you don't have to deal in crypto. You can pay us in credit card. We'll put a lien on your NFTs until your chargeback period has expired.
Right.
And then they become your NFTs. But, so we can allow the funding to be flagged as uncleared payment. You can still have it in your wallet. You can still look at it. And then that's got nothing to do with crypto, really.
Right. I mean, crypto is just the implementation detail at that point.
Yeah. And it's kind of, I view it as none of their business. Like our contractual relationship is with the person who made the payment for the packet of work they wanted. How the fact that we pay our contractors in crypto's got nothing to do with the front end processing.
Mm-hmm. The other thing is, I think you can make a fairly strong case that all these NFTs are utilities as well, because they're kind of like they're the fuel that the Dreamcatcher system runs off of.
Yeah, well, the way that I flagged them in OpenSea was they are membership. And so by buying one or earning one, you have gained membership to a packet. And you have some decision-making power at each point. And so by participating, you're not a security. And then when it comes to trading, if the only revenue stream is from this decentralized artificial attribution system, then that's not a security either, because there's no third party that, there's no one you couldn't file suit against any particular party because it's a decentralized attribution.
Right.
So long as, and then someone's stupid enough to start promoting it like they're going to go and make sure that your share in this packet earns some return, they made it a security. That's their, that's their transactional problem to deal with. That's not us. We're like expressly forbidding that kind of behavior.
Right.
I mean,
you
can be a loudmouth.
Yeah, exactly. You can't stop people from being people.
No.
So what else? I had another thought here is just the training that model. Like there's a period before you have like a ton of data where a lot of the attribution stuff has to be decided more or less manually, right?
So the initial seed of attribution is split between two parties. The first party is the QA, where the QA will assign when a solution comes in, the QA will decide how to split the solution NFTs, because if you've been building off someone else's solution, the QA will arbitrate how much,
Right.
roughly speaking, and that's a manual step that I don't know how to get around. We don't have an allocation mechanism at the moment. Yeah, it's a debate. So what? It's not going to be terribly contentious, right? It's like this is it, the QA simply sets the starting point for what the contribution split was.
Right.
Then the second place where it occurs is because there's two fundamental questions when it comes to attribution for contribution and human activity. The first one is relative contribution, like if two people work on something, how much, if you were to split the contribution, where does the split go? That's the first problem. And the second problem is if somebody paid them to make their contribution and then revenue comes in, how much revenue is due the funder and how much revenue is due the contributors or the solvers? And I think you can boil down a lot of the economic problems in the startup world to those two questions.
Mm-hmm.
This is what the AI is supposed to solve for us, or infer for us, or at least give us some sort of disinterested data-based allocation mechanism that's instantaneous and cheap to run. That's all it needs to be better. It doesn't have to be right. I'm not sure there is a right, but it just has to sound smarter and be able to defend its choices against any individual human. And the thing I'm noticing is that because you can apply it on transactions that are worth the API call costs about 1 cent. You can therefore apply it to any transaction that's worth about 10 cents. At some point, humans are going to not really care about arguing too much with this thing that sort of defeats them in most arguments anyway over small amounts of money. They're just like, screw it.
Interesting. It's the AI cares about, like, you can make it care about smaller things than people do.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, and it can add them all up and summate them for you, and it can defend itself whenever you question it, and it will defend itself eloquently, and you won't really you'll run out of food in your stomach before it runs out of electricity and silicon.
Well, the other thing too is, like, I think there's always a cost benefit analysis going on, saying, like, am I really going to split hairs over like 4 cents? It's going to take me more than 4 cents worth of time to like perform that operation, right?
Yeah, right. But if you're talking about like $100 million company, then it starts to become worth it. But that's one of the ills of not having your packets small. Like small, it'd be like trying to transfer a 2 terabyte file in one shot. Like you should break it up. So the point is, the patrons or the people who can purchase a finished product, they can stake their money against the completion of the packet, but they're under no obligation to part with it. Like they still have the final say. Like, yes, I said I was going to buy this thing. I changed my mind. I want my money back. Perfectly fine. Or if they do want to buy it, they have to answer a simple question with 3 numbers. They have to say the first number is, how much of your payment would you like to go to the funders? How much of the payment would you like to go to the contributors or the solvers? And how much of the payment should go to the dependencies of this packet? Those 3 numbers are the baseline for how we can start to guess at what the attribution split should be. Because from the numbers the QA gave us and the numbers that the patrons gave us, we can say, okay, of these payments, 56% should go to the solvers, and the QA said that the solvers were split a third, a third, a third between these three people, for example. And so that's enough to make an attribution tree out of that. The only thing that any inference engine would add onto that is the parameters or the amounts. The actual, what did it say, is still, no matter how you split it, it's going to look like an oracle. No matter what you do, it's always going to look like an oracle.
Right. I mean, yeah, I don't think. I think that's right. Yeah, I think that there's no way that you're like living inside the thing's brain, basically, right?
No, deeper than that. What I'm saying is, I don't believe there is a final answer. You couldn't come up. You couldn't come up with a mathematical proof that said this is how the splits for this job have to go QED. Like, you couldn't do that.
Yeah. I mean, the problem seems as hard to me as figuring out like what electrical impulses traveled in what person's neurons, right? That's like, it's a brutally hard problem.
Yeah, and so by starting with those two splits, splits amongst contributors, and then splits between funders, contributors, and dependencies. That starts to build the data set by which we can calculate that, or make an inference instantly ahead of time, even before you've even made your contribution. We can have a guess at it.
Right.
That's the model.
Yeah, I mean, I think it sounds very. What I worry about is the human judgments involved in it, end up poisoning the model in the long run. But I don't, there's enough balances of power inside of it. I think that's right. Not really a risk.
Well, I mean, the smart contract was designed so that when you make your proposal, you have to select your QA as well. So ultimately, what we want to move to is an inference-based QA as well. But that, I don't know when that would happen. Long time.
There is a small potential, I think, for QA collusion.
There is, yeah, but over a repeated number of runs, that will become apparent, because it is a reputation-based system.
Right.
Like QA is one of the few actors that's required to repeatedly turn up, whereas like a solver can be anyone, anywhere, no one cares, so long as your solution's good. QA has this reputation over time, or else they stop getting selected and they stop earning QA fees and attributions.
I think you might want to also force QAs to not necessarily I think what you're looking for is not closed networks of people, right? If you have small closed networks of people, it's a sign of collusion, right? It's a sign that reputation is more believable if the person who's getting scored on reputation is interacting with a wider set of people.
That's true. So the only constraint that I'm able to add right now is that for each of the actors, buyer, funder, QA, and solver, and proposer,
right?
None of them can be the same Ethereum address.
Oh, okay. But yeah, I mean, obviously, you can have two different addresses, but I guess your address is one of them might get a bad reputation if you're doing stupid shit, right?
That's about as good as I can do with Ethereum. And keep in mind, it costs gas to do that too. So there's these weird constraints on the smart contract. I had to trade off the model a little bit. I think it didn't come out too bad. But yeah, like gas is expensive. I mean, it doesn't make sense to have $150 worth of gas for like a job that it's worth like $300. So
Yeah, what I would say is there's probably some kind of a like reputation cliff for QAs where like if they don't interact with enough parties in the system, like it's not possible for their
hey, that's
reputation to go higher.
that's a good idea. Let me just make a note of that. So it's like a
Because at the end of the day, I think what you're saying is the QAs, the way they behave, is really the main thing that's training the AI, right?
no, it's one of the things.
Okay, yeah, not the main thing.
So the QA must stay active and must stay diverse in order for it to maintain a good standing.
Yeah.
Okay. And we could even like require that like 1 out of 1,000 times they behave badly to test the checks of the system. Like if one QA in a pool behaves badly and they were it was their turn, and none of the other QAs picked up on it or objected to it, then the whole pool gets penalized. Because you're like, well, no one's watching. Okay, all right. I'll see if I can work that into the contract. I think that's probably going to be a front end side of that as opposed to an Ethereum side.
Yeah.
But yeah, so long as the contract is just it only works on hashes of data and Ethereum addresses, then we can just put a filter on the activity in that contract that relates to us. Other people can make their own front ends, do their own systems. It's got nothing to do with us. They can go do whatever.
I've never heard of the semi-fungible token. I'm reading about it right now.
They're pretty fun. They're pretty fun.
It can only be an NFT if there's only one of them?
No, it's an NFT that can be fractionalized. So the ERC721 was about each token was unique and there was only one of them. 1155 is saying that each token is an ERC20 token. There can be one or many of them. And what it means is that you can save a lot of gas because you don't need to, you can treat the 1155 like it was an NFT generator, or you can treat it like an ERC20 generator or a mix in between, and it's the same contract. You don't need to redeploy it each time. The problem they were having was that, for example, if your company wanted to issue multiple classes of shares, then you'd have to deploy multiple ERC20 tokens. But with the 1155, you can just you can have them all in the same contract, and you can have them interact. And that's kind of what I needed to use for this contract, was that like some NFTs need to trigger events in other ones. So, when the packet gets marked sold, that triggers a burn and a mint for funders, and it sort of makes it open to patrons to be able to buy. Like it trips a whole lot of things that change the properties of the tokens involved.
I hate to do this. I have a two minute time here.
Cool, man. No worries. Yeah, so I guess have a think about it. I'll just send you some more stuff over, and just Let me know what you think. It's mainly, does the public company pose a risk to the overall long-term success of the Dreamcatcher is my question.
Yeah, and I mean that'll always come down to the same thing for me, which is like, to what degree can they assert ownership over like the work product?
Zero.
Yeah,
They earn attribution the same way everyone else does, which is going to be from the inference model.
and it, like, I guess, is that, I always tend to think of things too much from the legal interpretation angle, right? Is that something that's like a belief, or is that something that can be backed up by like hard legal fact, basically?
The software was GPL'd. You can't own it. End of story.
Yeah. I mean, I think if there's a way for a company to make as much money as it wants by pumping money into something that's open source, and getting things back that it wants, like that's sort of a thing that everybody's been looking for a long time, right?
How can it not be good? Anyway, I'll let you go. Thank you very much for the time. Sorry I was late.
Yeah, no worries. Hopefully everything gets better for you at home with the anyway, man.
Okay.
Have a good
See you
one.
later.
Bye.
See ya.